who is. We're really excited today to talk about a question that we have been getting quite a bit, or really questions that we've been getting a lot with our um, workshops that we're doing, with the conversation we're having, with the presentations that we're giving. It's really something that keeps coming up over and over again, and that is, do I need to be referencing or citing the fact that I'm using AI in the work or the content that I'm producing? Is somebody going to be able to tell or know that the content that I have made has been generated or assisted by AI, whether that's ChatGPT or Bard? And so today we're going to go into some of the specifics around how to think about that, how to answer those questions so you can feel comfortable or at least confident knowing what the leading ethical thinking is behind using AI to produce content or really to do anything that you're doing, and whether or not you need to be telling people that that's what you're doing. So my name is Zach Giglio. I'm founder of GCM. We're a global comms and marketing agency that believes in the power of human connection and business as a force for good. We combine our decades of communications and marketing experience with the latest in artificial intelligence technology to scale marketing and communication campaigns for our clients to have serious, real, tangible impact and success. And we're really excited to at some of the most recent developments in AI. Copy AI released workflows this past week, which is very exciting prospects. Not perfect yet, but at least has a lot of really good use cases already. And a couple studies and news items that came out that I think we'll start off with to go over before we jump in. How do you gauge whether, how do you gauge how you tell people about you using AI in the content that you're creating, and how you should feel about the ethics behind that? So the first thing I want to talk about, though, as far as news and reports go, is McKinsey came out with a recent study called Generative AI and the Future of Work in America. And it's interesting because we hear a lot of people talking about, we had a conversation yesterday or the day before, someone in our field talking about her concern for her job in marketing. And you hear already, Mark Andreessen was on the Joe Rogan podcast talking a lot about AI, and he talked about how he believes ChatGPT today can do as good of a job as most doctors and lawyers. Now, I'm not a doctor or a lawyer. I don't know, what they would say about that, but I do know people are diagnosing illnesses on ChatGPT. People are writing legal contracts. We've written legal contracts using AI. So there's no doubt that there will be jobs that exist today that won't exist in 5 years, 10 years, or 20 years. It doesn't mean that we'll be losing jobs, because usually when there's a new technology, new jobs are created in areas that we don't have yet. But this report is somewhat interesting. I'll just go over the high level headlines here that they provide in the top section of the report. They say at a glance. So basically, this report isn't just about generative AI. I do get the feeling that they threw in generative AI in the title so that they would get more views on it. It reminds me of in the beginning of like the crypto bubble, when everybody was throwing like blockchain or crypto or something connoting to that effect onto their business name, onto their website or something like that, so that people would pay more attention. And that's what people are doing now. Like, everybody's an AI company now, even if they have nothing to do with AI. So they use generative AI in the future of work. And I think there is some things in this report that do speak about AI's impact on jobs, but not the whole thing is. So this is during the pandemic, the U.S. labor market saw 8.6 million occupational shifts, 50% more than the previous 3-year period. Most involved people leaving food services, in-person sales, and office support for different occupations. This says, now here's where it starts getting a little bit into generative AI. By 2030, activities that account for up to 30% of hours currently worked across the U.S. economy could be automated, a trend accelerated by generative AI. Now that's true. And they say, however, we see generative AI enhancing the way STEM, creative, and business and legal professionals work rather than eliminating a significant number of jobs outright. And I have to say, I agree with a lot of that point. I mean, there will be a lot of like automated or like really rudimentary tasks that will just be gone. So like if you have maybe lower level entry level workers who are performing really rudimentary tasks based on a specific set of guidance, that will be replaced. Those roles won't be there, but I do think it's worth considering that there will be new roles created that we don't have now. And so I think what McKinsey's trying to get at is AI is going to impact jobs. Doesn't mean it's going to be a net eliminator. It just means that the job landscape is going to look different. I can tell you in our business that's true. I can tell you in the businesses that we're working for, this is already true. So I don't think they're going out on too big of a limb there. There's a couple other things that have nothing to do with AI. They're thinking an additional 12 million occupational transitions may be needed by 2030. It says as people leave shrinking occupations. So think about like a paralegal, that is a shrinking occupation. Think about like coders, web developers, video game developers, even like graphic artists. Those occupations are shrinking. The economy could re-weight toward higher wage jobs. Maybe I don't know if that's true. Workers in lower age jobs are lower wage jobs, sorry, up to 14 times more likely to need to change occupations than though in the highest wage positions. This makes no sense if you're considering AI. Like, let me just read this again. This says an additional 12 million occupational transitions may be needed by 2030. As people leave shrinking occupations, the economy could re-weight toward higher wage jobs. Workers in lower wage jobs are up to 14 times more likely to need to change occupations than those in highest wage positions, and most will need additional skills to do so successfully. This is interesting. Women are 1.5 times more likely to need to move into new occupations than men. I don't know. Like it depends on what they're referencing there, and I think it probably goes into it in the study. I think this is what's important to note. The jobs that will be changing are white collar jobs. They're not blue collar jobs. AI is not doing anything to replace your plumber. AI is not doing anything to replace landscaping. We're really far from that. What AI is doing is replacing administrative tasks. It's replacing entry level tasks. These are considered more white collar jobs. So depending on the market, whether it's high wage or low wage, I'm not sure. But the jobs that are being changed are white collar jobs. And if I think specifically about like the marketing and comms world, like content writers, real basic designers, that's going to be gone. What you're going to have is more knowledgeable, experienced people in the marketing discipline that have a broader understanding of different areas within marketing. So like marketing strategists, content strategists, comm strategists, people who see bigger pictures and know enough about different facets of a marketing campaign to know what works and what doesn't. Those are the people who are going to be really valuable. Now, if you think about like a big agency or organizations with big marketing teams, like those are going to shrink. But if you also now think about maybe a small business that's under resourced, rather than saying, okay, well, we don't have the money, budget, or resources to put 10 people on a yearly marketing campaign, what they're going to be able to do is hire one person to be able to run larger marketing campaigns. And so it actually could be creating new opportunities that way. So I think what McKinsey is trying to do here is probably a little bit too much at one time. This says the United States will need workforce development on a far larger scale, as well as more expensive hiring approaches from employers. Well, that's always true. Every time we're at the advent of a technological change, that is true. We need to retrain our workforce. So it's interesting. I think the stat about women being 1.5 times more likely to have to change jobs is interesting. I'd like to look into a little bit more about that. But again, I think the larger shift is going to be in white collar jobs. So the other one is, like I said before, everybody's saying that they're an AI company now. Everybody's putting AI at the end of their name on their website. They want to be associated with this like big gold rush, it looks like. And it's probably a bit of a bubble too. I mean, there's definitely some companies out there with massive valuations that you probably won't hear of in a couple months. But everybody's entering. And of course, Amazon is entering. So Amazon has been hosting on its cloud services a lot of these big generative AI models and applications. What they now are saying that they're going to do is they're going to put Alexa into AI. Put AI into Alexa, and particularly in people's homes. Now they're calling it generative AI, but I think that term is being overused. I think more practically what they're referring to is they're saying that they're going to turn up. You'll see this when Amazon, they're going to announce new devices at their September 20 event. And their quote from Dave Limp, who is their Senior Vice President of Devices and Services, says, generative AI is something we've been working on for a while, and it has huge potential, especially in the home. The opportunity to bring generative AI to customers at that scale is incredibly exciting, but we also know we need to hold a high bar as we build new features and experiences. Whatever any of that means. Axios, they think that their readers don't want to read full articles, so they break it all into bubbles or into bullets. And what they say is, between the lines, many of Amazon's devices have additional sensors such as cameras and microphones that can add context to generative AI. That's interesting. But kind of every device has cameras and microphones. And then Alexa also supports a range of other hardware, including the Eero Home Network and Ring security system Amazon sells. So, it's the examples that are given is, you would say to your Alexa, I'm going on vacation for a week. Please set my devices to make sure the house is safe and we aren't using more electricity than necessary. So the goal would be to transform Alexa into an assistant. And I do think that's where AI is going to be going. You're going to have applications and models that are very specialized in specific tasks and trained on very specific data sets. But I think we're also going to have more general assistant that actually is going to interface with all those more specific models that will be like your direct liaison to all the other applications and more specialized models. So I think that that's a nice thought there. There's also the challenge. I mean, like if anybody's ever used ChatGPT or Bard, you've typed in a question and got a completely ridiculous answer. So what's to say that the Amazon artificial intelligence, or whatever it really is going to be following your directions completely accurately? If you say, make sure no one gets into my home, are they going to errantly open doors, unlock windows, turn the lights on, turn the lights off? So it would have to be really keyed up. It's one thing to get the wrong answer when you're typing something in the ChatGPT. You can double check it. It's another thing to leave your house for a week and trust that your AI model in Alexa is going to actually be taking care of your security. So anyway, the world of AI is obviously changing every day. There's some really new developments. We haven't even talked about workflows, which is an automation functionality that Copy.ai has added, which is a lot of potential, still very buggy and very kinky, and has some issues, but there is some really great potential in there. But we'll skip over that for now until we play around with it more. I don't want to kind of present it without really understanding how to get rid of some of the bugs, because we've tried to use it and it's not all the way there, but it can do light tasks in a really automated way, and it's pretty exciting. So let's get to the real crux of the conversation. So over the past couple of weeks, we at GCM, we do our AI in marketing workshop. We're doing presentations on it. I'm speaking at a couple conferences in my local area and over the next couple of months about AI in marketing and how organizations can leverage it. And literally conversations we're having all over the world, people are asking very similar questions. And those questions are all about, how do if I'm going to be using one of these platforms, ChatGPT, Bard, Jasper, Copy.ai, do I need to be telling people or disclosing that I've used it? And also, if I do or if I don't, will people be able to tell? Now, it's an interesting question on will people be able to tell. And we've thought about, and we had a great suggestion from one of my friends, Roy Pearson, at the National Research Group on LinkedIn, where he said we should do like the Pepsi Coke challenge, like post two different versions, one that was totally generated by AI and one that AI is kind of like AI assisted, I would say. which we'll get into in a second what the difference is. And I think that's the crux of this. But AI assisted is, you use the platform and you go back and forth. You put the human edit and expertise on it. And see if people could be able to tell. My bet is people might not be able to tell the difference between what is generated by AI and what is generated by a human, but people can tell the difference between quality content and content that is not quality. And that's more of what I would be concerned with. So let's just take a step back and think about how should we view the ethics around using AI and generating content. So first of all, in our AI and marketing workshops, we teach people that they should be using AI as a junior employee. If you approach AI as a junior employee, you will leverage all of the great opportunities that exist in the technology. You will also mitigate a lot of the risks that come with this technology, such as lack of understanding of nuanced language, lack of maturity in subject matter, confusing different speakers in podcast transcripts, producing the wrong answers. You'll be able to manage that. But if you also think about approaching AI as a junior employee, it would be the same thing. Like, if you're on a larger team, I was a junior employee at Edelman in Washington, D.C. I was a junior employee at a boutique public affairs firm. And I worked and supported on producing a lot of content that ended up being published in national newspapers. And in no instance did anybody put my name on that content. Because first of all, I wasn't the sole producer of that content. Almost in no situation would one entity be responsible for producing a piece of content. And second of all, it was a team effort. And it just wasn't standard practice. Now, I think what people are confusing is copyright infringement. So if one of these models are taking copyrighted information and not altering it, not making any sort of original output, then yeah, that would be a concern. But I just haven't seen that happen, at least not a lot. I think the other thought that you have to have is, I'm more concerned if you are using ChatGPT or Bard or Jasper or Copy AI or any one of these platforms, you're giving it a single prompt and you're taking the entire output and you're publishing that. There is no way, no matter how good you are at prompting, you can consider yourself a prompt engineer extraordinaire. No matter how good you are at prompting, the initial output of these programs will not be good enough for publication. They just won't. They will need someone who knows what good content looks like to run through it, to make edits. Sometimes the edits are significantly drastic. And it's also really good practice to go back and forth with the model that you're using. I often, to produce a single piece of content, am using 3 different models or platforms at the same time. And if I'm doing that, there is no one sole author to that piece of content. I'm the one orchestrating it all. So I would never just say, hey, ChatGPT or Bard, can you write a blog post based on the key takeaways from the McKinsey report? And then take that, copy and paste it and publish it. I mean, that would never happen, especially if you're adhering to like a social a search engine optimization strategy. These platforms can't really work for that. So you need to edit it. So the bigger concern is when someone asks me that, I want to make sure you're not just taking like the output that it's producing and publishing it. That would be more of a concern than even, I think, disclosing the ethics behind using these things. That would be just, you're probably publishing really poor quality content. So, let me just walk you through how I think you should be using these models to produce a blog post. And then by the end of this process, I think you'll realize there would never be a need to have to disclose that you're using one of these AI platforms to generate the content. So the first thing that we're going to do is we come up with ideas for an article. And now these ideas, whether it's for our company or whether it's for one of our clients, these ideas are already falling under larger organizational and business and communications and marketing strategies and campaigns built into those strategies. And so the ideas that we're coming up are tied to larger organizational and business goals, right? So that's number one. Now, let's say you don't have the infrastructure to put that together. You can just think, okay, in the next month, my business really wants to sell a lot of this. Well, when I have a conversation with my customers about this, what are the questions they ask, and how could I, create an article around that? That could be in like one way you generate an idea. So what you do is then you could then go into one of these models and say, I'd like to write an article about let's say it's boating season here in Charleston. So I'd like to write an article about the best ways to enjoy the water on a boat in the Charleston area. So what I would do is I'd go into one of these models, and ChatGPT doesn't access. They removed their plugin for real-time search, which is a problem because I really like ChatGPT. So if you want to like research recent trends, you got to use Bard. Or use Jasper or Copy AI. And you search, you say like, I'd like to write a blog article for my business, and name your business. And then you can even link your website so it can find information about your business, about the best ways to enjoy the water on a boat in Charleston in the summer of 2023. Then what you could say is, search recent news and trends over the past month or two about the ways people are getting access to boats. So it could be that they're chipping in and buying a boat together. It could be they're using these like boat rental clubs where it's kind of like the Netflix of boats. It could be that they're using regular traditional charter companies, whatever it is. So it'll find that and say, okay, well, as someone who wants to use one of these services, can you identify the pros and cons of each way that I could get on a boat and go into the water? And it'll do that. And then you can ask it more questions, and you start thinking through, what somebody would want to know to make a decision on how they're going to get a boat. Then at the end, you say, okay, thanks. Take all of the research that in this conversation that we've just had and generate a blog article. You can say generate an outline, but it's generate a blog article of about 1,000 words that I'm going to post on my website. So then it'll generate the article. So then you'll look at it, and some of it will make sense, some of it won't. And maybe it'll be the tone and voice won't be right. So then what you could say is make the tone and voice a little bit more conversational, informative, but also, somewhat educational, something like that. So then it'll rewrite it in that. They say, okay, well, this is actually still a little bit too boring and dry. Can you use some like fun examples of other things people could do in the water, like while they're using a boat, so they can go tubing or something like that? Or can you write this in a really fun way, as if like I'm, Frankenstein looking to rent a boat in Charleston? You can have it go through all these things. Then what I would encourage you to do is take that copy, when you get a little bit further down the road, put it into like a Google Doc or a Microsoft Word, and just as a human being, go through it and edit it as you would if a junior employee handed you a document. So go through and edit it. You might be happy with this version, or you might say, I would really like a statistic to support this paragraph. So put that paragraph back into one of the models and say, do you have any recent statistics that would shed light or bring this paragraph to life? Please cite your references. Make sure you check the references because it gets things wrong. And you put it back in. When you have a draft that you're happy with, put it back into 2 or 3 of these and say, here's a blog post that I wrote. Do you have any recommendations for edits? Do you think it matches this tone of voice? And then it'll probably give you some recommendations. Some of them will be good, some of them you won't want to use. That would be a short, quick way to generate a blog post that would show that you are the true author. That the AI tool would have helped you generate the post, but it would have assisted you. It is a tool. It is not something that comes up with the ideas itself. If you had never prompted it in the ways that I just described, it never would have produced that blog post. Therefore, it is not the author of that blog post. So all that's to say is the leading thinking on the ethics of using AI to generate content is that it does not need to be disclosed as the sole author, because if you're producing quality content, it never would be the sole author anyway. Now, here's the other side of that. I tell everybody that I know, clients, potential clients, business contacts, family, I tell everybody that I know that we use AI all the time to produce content. So this isn't something that I'm hiding from. This isn't a dirty secret. And there will be some people who don't understand it where they think that maybe it is copyright or maybe it is, lazy work. But I wrote a blog post today. It's not done yet. It's so far taken me 3 to 4 hours. So, I mean, this isn't like AI isn't replacing things yet. It's just making the process a lot easier. So, but I'm telling everybody, hey, we're combining our decades of communications and marketing experience with the latest in artificial intelligence technology to produce content. And if you're not excited about that, that's okay. I'm happy to have a conversation of why we think it's a good idea. Because in 6 months from now, 1 year, 2 years from now, this is going to be the norm. Like this, like there's no going back from this. There won't, like, you will not be able to exist in marketing and comms if you don't use AI in the next even 6 to 12 months. You won't be able to exist. So you might as well get ahead of it now and just be honest and tell people that you're using it if you are. And if they want, explain how you're using it, walk them through the process. What it'll do is it'll one, just kind of not make it a taboo subject, but the other thing, it'll show that the true art of this work is not actually done in the writing of the article. It's done in the research, it's done in the ideation, it's done in the strategy, it's done in the SEO strategy, in the overall marketing and comms strategy, in the business strategy. That's where all this work happens. It makes me think of this famous anecdote about, I think it was Picasso, and Picasso was in like a cafe doodling on a napkin and went to go throw it away. And someone said, "Excuse me, can I please have that?" And he said, "Sure, it'll cost you $50,000. And the person said, $50,000? Like, it took you 5 minutes to draw that. And Picasso said, no, 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 it took me 50 years to draw that. And that is an example of my ability to generate content from AI did not take me 4 hours, 5 hours. It took me 15 years of experience of doing communications and marketing to know what to ask, to know what to look for. So by no stretch do I believe that ChatGPT, Bard, Jasper, or Copy produced that content. It was a tool that made me more efficient and better at my job, but it didn't actually write that content. So I think that's the distinction. If you're thinking about it that way, who wrote that post? Of course you wrote that post, or your team wrote that post. And if the team is you and AI, that's a great team. That team wrote that post. So I think that's important to remember. That's the explanation we've given a whole bunch of people in the past week. So we wanted to put it out there. So, remember that you don't need to feel bad about using AI. You don't need to disclose that you've used it because, one, it's part of your team. Two, you would never just prompt AI one time to write a blog post and publish the exact output, right? Like, that would be poor quality, I'm sure of it. And three, you want to just be telling people you're using this anyway. There's nothing to hide from this. This is the latest technology in our field, in our marketing and communications field, or in any field. This is the latest technology. Why wouldn't I want to be the one using this and leveraging this? So I think if you think about it that way, it really clears up a lot of the questions. But I'd be encouraged to see what questions didn't I answer. What other things related to that? Have you run into any ethical issues? Have anybody ever challenged you on this idea? Do your bosses or your clients or your colleagues not want you using AI in your work, and why? Follow us on LinkedIn, engage with us, send us messages, send us an email, hello@whoisgcm.com. Check out our new website, and stay tuned. We'll publish a couple more of these things. But I hope that was helpful. This was Who Is Your Business from GCM. I'm your host, Zach